You've heard the term crony capitalism, and maybe instinctively you know you don't like it. But what does the term actually mean? How is it different from actual capitalism? And why is it wrecking our economy and threatening our deepest, most fundamental liberties? I'm Nick Sorrentino. I co-founded Against Crony Capitalism in 2011. And since then, I've written almost daily, I typically take Christmas off, on how government and special interests come together to essentially tilt the system to their advantage and disadvantage the American people. My work has been featured in places like Foreign Policy Magazine, NPR, Reason, The Daily Caller, and more. I've spoken at CPAC, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, the National Press Club, and plenty of other places. I also run one of the world's largest liberty-minded Facebook pages, Against Crony Capitalism, with over 364,000 followers. Additionally, I write a newsletter at Substack. There's a link in the description where we cover the latest in crony deals, corporate welfare, and backroom dealing. In this video, I'm going to walk you through 1, what crony capitalism is. 2, what it isn't. We're going to talk about some real world examples, stuff you'll instantly recognize. We'll talk about how it hurts everyday people and small business. We're going to talk about why it thrives in socialist interventionist systems. We'll talk about how we can fight back. And we're going to talk about what happens if we don't fight back. Fundamentally, crony capitalism is when government and private interests, and that can be corporations, but it can also be unions, it could be other interests, get too cozy. And they use that relationship to essentially jack the system to tilt the playing field and line their pockets. A key thing here to understand is that it's not free market capitalism. This system, crony capitalism, is a system of connections, favoritism, and control. Think bailouts, think backroom deals, think taxpayer-funded subsidies, and regulations that crush small competitors when the big firms are running the show. Capitalism at its best is about voluntary exchange, risk, and innovation. Crony capitalism is the opposite. It rewards insiders, it punishes outsiders, and it distorts the market with political favoritism. From Wall Street bailouts, and boy do we remember those hurt, to green energy scams, to defense contractors getting sweetheart deals, to pharma getting similar types of deals. Crony capitalism surrounds us. It permeates our system. Indeed, one can make the case that we exist within a crony capitalist system. Consider also giant retailers lobbying for regulations that crush small retailers, crush small business, generally speaking, for them. Think also about the fact that the big giant banks, Goldman Sachs, those guys know that no matter what, they'll be bailed out. But the little tiny community banks, guess what? They're going to fail. That's crony capitalism for you. The rules right now, and frankly for a long time now, are rigged. And the longer it goes on, the harder it is to compete and to break through, unless you're part of the club. As George Carlin said, you're not part of that club. And it's interesting, we have a few generations of people, a certain group of people who think that, if we just increase the size of government, we'll chase out, the corporate influence or whatever. It doesn't work like that. The more power government has, the more valuable it is to buy influence. The more power government has, the more the private interests will buy the government to help them get what they want. That's just the way it is. In socialist systems or heavily interventionist systems, crony capitalism is the norm because central planners need to pick winners and losers. And is this only pharma? Is it only the defense industry? Is it only oil and gas? By no means. Unions are part of this equation too, especially the government unions. Teachers unions are, just the whole system is deeply crony capitalist. So that needs to be kept in mind. It's not just the evil, bad corporations. At least some of these corporations produce, valuable goods and services. Some of these other cronies, it's just flat out stealing the whole way. Consider the NGO system that Doge has recently exposed. We have a system where essentially you have non-government organizations that are funded by the government, which are funded by the taxpayer, that essentially operate as legal money laundering tools for connected people. Now, these entities, of course, they're solving problems like, ending hunger in Uganda or something like this. But invariably, these NGOs are filled with connected people that make a lot of money. This is an important part of our system. If you're part of the club, you get paid. If you're not, you don't. One thing we need to acknowledge, and this is often hard for people to acknowledge, is that crony capitalism is kind of the default system. Wherever there's government, there's always going to be some form of crony capitalism. Back when civilization began, we're willing to bet that there were priests and other muckety-mucks that are, lobbying the pharaoh or Hammurabi for irrigation canal contracts and so on. This is just the way it is. But we can lessen it. To be against crony capitalism is to essentially default towards liberty, towards fair markets, towards honest business, with the understanding that the tendency is always to move away from that. It is always to move towards more centralization, more government control, more crony control. We need to understand that. So it's almost like tending a garden. If you're against crony capitalism, if you're for liberty also, by the way, you got to commit to the fact that you got to pay attention and you got to, keep the cronies in line. You're never going to get rid of them all. You can never get rid of the dandelions entirely from your yard. I don't care who you are, all right? They're going to come back, but you can make sure that the cronies don't pop up as much as they would if you didn't tend the garden. Okay, so with this important acknowledgement, how do we fight crony capitalism? How do we keep the crony weeds at bay so that they don't choke our beautiful garden? Well, let's shine a light on the deals and the lobbyists and the subsidies and the lies. And that is what we've done for the past decade and a half, but we're doing more of it. The second step is demanding real reform. Less government favoritism, frankly, less government intervention, more transparency, and a real commitment to free markets. This is an area where our friends on the left really fall down when they talk about fighting crony capitalism. We talk to a lot of people, and our audience, particularly on Facebook, is very broad across the political spectrum. And a lot of our friends on the left just can't come to terms with the fact that the free market is the most just market. Well, we're not going to solve that problem here, that's for sure. Suffice it to say that if we don't course correct, crony capitalism will keep spreading until freedom and innovation and liberty are really just buzzwords. And that would be a tragedy on a cosmic level. But if we do fight it, if we can build a system that rewards merit, not manipulation, one that is generally inclined towards free markets and away from manipulated markets, we've got a chance. We could have a generation of real prosperity. We at Against Crony Capitalism are committed to this idea of at least a generation in the future where systems are much more free and less crony, where markets are freer, where merit is rewarded generally versus connections. This can happen, but it takes a lot of effort from not just us, but from people like you. And we ask for your help in making this world, significantly less crony capitalist. Now, if this video resonated with you, we ask that, do the standard thing, like, subscribe, and even share it. We'd really appreciate it. Thanks for watching, and welcome to Against Crony Capitalism.